there's all these twists and turns and ups and downs and different ways and back doors you can go into. And so think about all of these different, all the different ways that you can get to your endpoint, and then, choose the one that works best for you.
Hey, 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 it's the Human Experience Podcast. Listen, thank you guys for tuning back in to the It's the Human Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Hazel Brown, and we're going to jump right into the episode. I have Dr. Deann on the podcast today. So excited to have her here. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Welcome, Dr. Deann.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So the first question I have for you is, who is Dr. Deann?
Oh, great question there. So who is Dr. Deann? I am a mother to 3 kids. That's first and foremost. They are about to be 15, 5, and 10 months. We can talk at a later time about why in the world I space my kids out like that. But I'm a mother first. I'm a partner to Fred, daughter to Mary. And then after all of those things, I am also a health equity champion, healthcare expert out here, working in this healthcare world for over 20 years now, which tells my age. So that's who I am. I can go down into like all the educational history and all that kind of thing if you want to, but first and foremost, mother, partner, daughter, then comes my job. Took me a long time to get to that, which is why I answered the question the way I did.
I love that, like that evolution of realizing your priorities.
Yeah, it was. I am a reformed or reforming workaholic. So I used to work 60, 70 hours a week. Even though I had a kid and, had a partner and things like that, I was so career focused, and my value I thought my value came from being this very high performer within the healthcare field, and a whole lot of therapy later finally realized that Dr. Deann is more than her career and has more to offer than her career. And that I wanted my kids and my family to be my priority and put them first. And then comes this career that I so love.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that you touched on that, because it's not like you realize like your career or your business or whatever it is that you had going on in terms of the things you do day to day to create financial wealth for yourself wasn't important, but you realize that the people that matter the most was extremely important, and you can't save whatever's left for them because time is of the essence and they're watching you. And I think even with kids, I could speak for myself, when you realize that you're teaching them how to adult in the way that you choose to adult, you have to heal and figure out what you can do to grow, to make sure that they don't follow like generational curses or pick up habits that are not necessarily healing and balancing to where we need it to be.
Yeah. And I think, the turning point, one of the turning points for me was when I realized there's no work-life balance. Like, let's just throw that out the window. And I made a decision that my kids and my partner were going to come first. And there are only so many hours in the day. And like you said, I didn't want my kids and my family to get what was left over. And I'm out here giving, my job, my business, 150% of myself in my day. And I get home and I'm already tired. And so I switched that around. And so now my family, they get most days, they get, all of me. I do also, in that, you have to realize to give yourself some grace. I'm not perfect. There are still some days where I work too much, but I am better at recognizing where I'm at and having that awareness of, okay, you're starting to work too much. You're getting real laser focused on let's bring it back down and put that family first now. So I threw out that idea of work-life balance, made sure that my kids and my family knew the answer to them was going to be yes. If it's their birthday, if it's an outing they want to go on or a trip, that answer will be yes. Then comes work. And then I also give myself grace and realize that I'm not going to be perfect at this, thing that I'm trying to do, and be aware and call myself back in and reset and, and then continue on the journey.
Yeah. I love even the part that you talk about just reassessing and readjusting, because I feel like sometimes like the burden for women, when we think about heart disease being like the number one killer for
Mhm.
women, we put so much extra pressure on ourselves, and just being able to simply understand that, yes, I'm not going to be perfect, and it's okay to readjust and reassess and move on from there by being in the moment to whatever's going on in your life. So I love that for you.
Thank you, thank you. And I think the other part that goes along with that is, we us reassessing and then also having people around you that are supportive of the decisions and you being able to reassess, because this only works because I've set up a business that can that helps me with it, and a partner that supports it, and I work for a company that understands that my family and my kids come first. And so yes, I have to be able to reassess, but I also have to surround myself with people or jobs or opportunities that support this decision that I've made.
Oh my God, like you dropped so much gems in that statement, because behind the scenes of all the decisions that you've made, you had to make sure that your values align with the kind of career that you chose and business that you
Mhm.
chose. Because if they weren't in alignment, then it wasn't going to work, regardless of what decisions you made for yourself. If everything else that lined up to that wasn't on board in terms of communication,
Mm-mm.
intentionally seeking out companies that valued you and your family, like all those things that happen behind the scenes where on social media, it just looks like, gosh, Dr. Deon's blessed. God
Mm-mm.
just dropped some things in her lap.
Well, look, that does happen, but Dr. Dion also has to sacrifice and realize that, when we talked about career, there are definitely things in my career that I would like to do that I'm not getting to do right now. And that's okay, because I value, my family, and I understand that I've got a 10-month-old, which means I want her here with me. I'm not ready for her to go to daycare. And so I need to work for a company or have a business that allows me to do that, which means there may be an opportunity that presents itself, that may be more money, it may be more notoriety, but I'm not in the season to where I can do that. And I also have to be okay with that decision, because, like you said, where my values align is that right now I'm in this season, my kids, my family, they're first. I trust that God will, further down the line when they get a little bit older, that a better opportunity is going to come with more notoriety and more money. But right now, I'm where I need to be, and that's what I value.
Yeah, I want to touch on some things that resonate with me.
Hmm.
Particularly, I remember early on in my career when I was working as an administrator for OBGYN practice, I was overseeing like 70 something employees reported up to me, four location, 12 doctors. It was so much. And I had young kids at the time. Like now they're young, but they're in middle school and high
Hmm.
school. So it feels like they're not as young
Feels
or
like
whatever.
they're older.
Yeah, but when I realized they've gotten nowhere, because we've gotten nowhere, so it's kind of like. But I remember, to the point of what you said earlier, in terms of having to figure out how to make decisions, I would come home and the lights were off. It was kind of like no external stimulus. I've had enough for the day. And it was not okay to come home and treat the people that I brought into this world and the partner that I chose to be with as though they came second to my job. So I quickly had to realize, like, sweetheart, you might be educated, you might be capable, but you have to focus on the things that you brought here. And I had to make a
Hmm.
decision to reel back and say, no, I can't have employees that are reporting up to me in that broad of scheme, maybe one or two at the most. But I have to make sure that the people that I am building are the people that I brought into this world. And so to that
Hmm.
end, I made a decision that, you know what? Continue to work in roles where you can be an influencer, but not
Hmm.
necessarily in a role where you have to build people up, because the people that need to be built up are at home. Once they get to a point where they don't need you as much, you can go back
Hmm.
out there, honey. But right now,
Yeah, and let me tell you, the punch in the gut you do not want is your child coming up to you and saying, "Mom, all you do is work and go to school." That is what happened to me. It is probably, I don't want to say it's the worst day of my life, but it was a punch in the gut, and it like woke me up and was like, I don't want. That's not the version of me that I want my kids to have or to see. It's not what I want them to grow up to be. And so, yes, I have these really lofty goals. I'm out here thinking I can transform healthcare and I'm going to be the person that changed the world. But really, changing the world starts with changing what's inside your house, what's going on right here around you. And I found that once I got that taken care of, it made me a better person to go out here and change the world too. So, yeah, so getting those things in order, and it's so important. Especially, I wish I would have did it earlier on in my career, but I didn't. But we've worked through that now, and now like they're getting the best of me. But like I say to people, like don't. That's what you don't want to happen. You don't want your kids or your partner to come home and say, all you do is work and go to school. Where do I fit into this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. All right, so you kind of touched on so many things, but I want to talk about like some myths on the journey. So as you're
Mhm.
working through your education, your career, what do you feel like some of the misconceptions and myths that you heard in society?
So I feel like one of the biggest ones, and I say this realizing that I got a bunch of letters behind my name, but I feel like there is this myth that you have to keep going to school, and if you keep going to school and you keep getting the different degrees, it's going to get you to like this higher level. Now, the reason why I say it's a myth is because especially, and I speak as a black woman, I think that we've been taught to education is the game changer. Education is a game changer. And it is the game changer, but I think that we rely on it too much to get to where you need to be. And there have been, I can rightfully say, most of the opportunities that I've gotten in my life have not been because of all these different degrees. And I got a lot of them, right? It's been because of people I know or being out there networking and within moving within, the right groups or opportunity came along. Now it helped. I'm not gonna lie here and say it doesn't help to have doctor like in front of my name. Some in some spaces that I go into, it gets me a little bit more respect. But I could have gotten the job that I have without going into that much more debt. And so I do think that there is there's that myth out there that you have to go out and get the next degree. I see it all the time in some of the Facebook groups that I'm in, like, should I go back and get this doctorate of public health, or should I go back and get this master's? And so what I tell people is that if you are going to go back and get a degree, then please make sure that you have found a way to monetize that information, that skill set, that you've thought that through before you commit to all those student loan dollars. Because student loan dollars are real. Sally Mae ain't gonna let you go nowhere. She will hunt you down. And so make sure you have a plan for it. And when I was working towards my doctorate, I had a professor that told us that while we were in her class. She was like, you need to figure out now how you're going to monetize this. Some of you all are spending six figures to get this doctorate. You better have a plan for how to make some money on the other side. So if you're going to go get the degree, have a plan for it, but also don't believe the hype that you have to have all of these advanced degrees in order to make money in healthcare. There are definite jobs that you can get and work your way up the ladder with an associate's degree or with certain certificates, and things like that.
Yeah, I love that realization. And I think it's funny because I've been making some posts recently on LinkedIn and Instagram about that very same thing. Because what I've noticed in just being a career coach, some of my clients has come to me, essentially they're asking those questions like, should I get another degree? Should I get a certification? Should I do this? And I think for me, what I've learned is it's almost like the validation of stamp that you're enough, that people are
Yes.
wanting to feel like they're enough. And I think that one thing I had to touch on a recent post was from the outside looking in. Everyone is telling you like, "Oh my God, girl, I'm so proud of you. You're so
Mm-hmm.
awesome," but you can't find good jobs. You're not making enough money. You don't feel good about yourself. So isn't
Mm-hmm.
that more important than being able to say you have all these accolades? And
Mm-hmm.
separate from that, oftentimes you don't even need another degree. I see people getting
Mm-mm.
3 bachelor's degree, like, you only need 1. Like, you can use strategy to get
Yep.
to the next
Yeah.
level, or 2 and 3 master's degrees, and I'm thinking to myself, why? And I had a call with a
Oh my
client
goodness.
recently that I said to them, I said, they're getting a master's in public health and they're kind of considering other things. And I'm like, a master's in public health, a master's in health service administration, a master's in health administration piece, all of those masters are the same master's degree.
Mhm.
And to your point, don't get me wrong, because I have a double master's degree, but I did it at the same time. And it
Yeah.
taught me different components of healthcare. If I had to do it separately, absolutely not. If it was extra
Mm-mm.
money because of it, absolutely not. And so I just feel like society has people brainwashed that your value comes from your titles, your values come from
Yes.
your money, your values comes from your degrees. No, your value comes from your heart. It comes from the kind of
Mhm.
person you are. It comes from if can you go to sleep at night without feeling guilty about all the things. And so there's just
Mhm.
so much reality and conversation that needs to happen. So I appreciate you being so transparent and open within that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, being transparent because I wish someone would have told me, but right, not rightfully so. I wish someone would have told me this, but I think the time that I came about, I didn't surround myself. I didn't have other people. I had this idea that I knew I wanted to go into healthcare, but I only knew doctors and nurses. And so if I want to be in healthcare, I need to be a doctor or a nurse. And so now I have been, I'm very passionate about making sure people know there are multiple different paths that you can go in within healthcare. And those paths can look very different. Some of them require degrees, some of them don't. Some just require a bachelor's, some maybe just require certification. But there's so many different ways that you can go. And I guess the last thing that I'll say, as someone who does equity pay audits, there's a lot of people that don't got a doctorate that make more than doctors do. So please don't think that you have to go and get the doctorate to get the title or to get the money. There's other paths and ways to get there. You just gotta, you gotta be strategic, like I know you help people do with your career coaching.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because in some of the roles that I was in where I had to hire and bring people on as a hiring manager, you see all of the different compensation packages.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, you see these doctors tirelessly working night and day, and you see other healthcare professionals making more than them. And you think to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, oh my God, why does everyone think being a doctor or a lawyer is the only way? And why don't people feel comfortable in yes, when I was younger, and this is true, when I was younger, everyone told me I should be a lawyer. And I'm like, I'm going to be a lawyer. Because when I said I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lawyer, everybody was like, oh, she's going to be a lawyer. Like, why is it
Right.
not okay to say,
Yep.
no, maybe I don't want to be a lawyer? So many
Mm-hmm.
people stick with their earlier thoughts when it's like, why? That is not the only option. And you can't listen to your 5-year-old self. Like, figure out
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do now at 18 or at 30 or 40 or whatever the case may be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. My 5-year-old self wanted to be a doctor, and I did stick with that because I had said it for so long. But I got to college and made a lot of mistakes. And that wasn't happening. So I had to find another way to be within healthcare. But I don't think if I wouldn't have gotten to college and it would have been like a smooth transition, I wouldn't have gone through the things I went through. I probably would have still pushed to be a doctor just because, like you said, like that is what I knew, is what I had been said, is what my 5-year-old self always said. Now I'm like with my son, I'm with my oldest son, I'm like, try out all the different things. Like there's so many different routes you can take, not just within healthcare, outside of healthcare. Be the business owner. Like we talk as you mentioned, looking at packages. The business owner, the CEO makes more than the doctor. Go figure out how to run the business instead of being the person who works with the member, unless you just really love that. But yeah.
One thing I want to call out in an evolution thought that I just had is that to a certain degree, we both listen to our 5-year-old selves. As
Mm-hmm.
me wanting to be a lawyer, it's speaking up for people, it's doing what's right. Through this podcast and the work that I do, I'm doing that. You are a doctor. Your acronyms start with DR, and
Yes.
separate from that, you're doing more impactful work through DEI, through
Mm-hmm.
making a difference in healthcare. And so it's almost like you take some time to think about why your 5-year-old self wanted to do these things, and life is going to kind of guide you anyways.
Mhm.
But it's just funny looking in rear view, thinking about it. To a certain degree, we followed our 5-year-old self, but we made it work for us.
Yeah, I think we figured out, like you said, what it was about that role or that path that we liked. And for me, I came to a realization, being a doctor for me was about helping people. And I figured out, not early on in my career, but a few years ago, that I would have a lot more impact along the way, like going into learning and development and this DEI space. Man, I can impact how nurses and doctors and social workers interact with patients. That's a lot of influence right there versus being the doctor who can only see, 15 patients per day. So, what you said is exactly right. Like, I am still a doctor. I did get that DR, but it was the helping people and having impacts and making sure people's voices were heard. And I have found a way to amplify that and like increase my span of impact through what I do now.
Nice. All right. So I like to ask, what is your current superpower?
Oh, my current superpower that is a really good question. I think it is I'm having to question that right now. My current being collaborative in this DEI work. So I feel like I was already a very collaborative, like teamwork type of person. But in this DEI health equity space, in order to get anything done, it has to be collaborative. Health equity, DEI, even though like a lot of companies will sit it within this HR, this people spot, it really touches every single function. And so the superpower that I've had to work on and cultivate and draw on has been, how do I collaborate cross functionally? How do I build relationships with other people? How do I get people to understand why health equity and DEI is important to them? And so every day coming with this spirit of teamwork and collaboration has been very important in this season that I'm in right now.
Nice. I love that. I always like to hone in on your current superpower because many times we start to look for what kind of superpower we would like. But I think it's so important that we always sit in that we have superpowers
Oh,
and are we
yes.
using them? And so I love that for you because your superpower that you naturally have is able to help you make a difference in the work that you do every
Mhm.
day.
Yes, I
Nice.
love that you called that out, that you push people to think about the superpowers that they already have instead of being focused on what we need to go out here and attain.
Absolutely, like that gratitude. And that really
Mhm.
leads me into trying to figure out like what your daily mindset habits look like.
So I am not great with the mindset habits, but I put together, a couple of routines with my therapist. And so my day starts with going for a walk. That is how I reset myself. Going, and we have where I live, it's got a nice little trail, it goes over a little creek. And so I do that. I go on the walk. I throw on some Beyonce and I get my mind right for the day. I tell myself that, I am valued, I am great, I am smart, because I don't think as Black women we get told that enough, or that we just people may say that we question it for ourselves. So I will go on my walk, I'll put on Beyonce, I will say those things, and that is usually how I get my day started. Throughout the day, got my little Apple Watch on. It reminds me to take my little moments of mindfulness and breathe. I've been working on that lately. And I will say, there are some days I am really good about it. And there are some days where it kind of sucks, and I'll look down and be like, I don't got time for that mindfulness breath right there. But I'm trying to get better at it. The walk is the one thing that I do commit to, because it does help me start my day out right.
Nice. I love that. I think that you're right. When you think about self worth and how that is a constant issue for women within itself, and
Mm-hmm.
realizing how to set boundaries and how to put their self first when we think about balance, right? It's also making sure that you're thinking about what can I pour into myself so that I'm full enough to pour into others. So I love that at the very least, a walk is going to happen and then we'll
Yes.
go from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and I will say, I am also, this has been a work in progress too. So I do my walk. I'm also very adamant about my self care. So I make sure I go get me my massages. I make sure I go get, but I count all of that as self care too. If I need to go to the bookstore, I love to read. So I buy books and I make sure I have time to read, travel and vacation. So I am very intentional about making sure I don't go too long without doing some self care because, like as you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I got to keep refilling myself if I want to be able to give to my family and my partner, who I've said come first, to these companies that I'm trying to get to do better. If I want to be able to give to them, I gotta give to myself first. It took a while to get there though.
And that's really my next question. How did you get to a point of self-actualization? In previous episodes, I think episode 4, I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how we all are trying to get to the top of self-actualization, figuring out who you are. And so how did you try to find your true self? And I'm going to let you answer, but I want to speak to the fact that you talked about you love reading books. You love
Mhm.
making sure that you have time for family. You talked about what you love. And I'll speak to people in regular conversations in terms of asking what makes them happy, and they don't know. So, how did you
Mhm.
find out what's fulfilling to you?
Okay, so I think two questions there. I think the first one is around, so how do I get to this self actualization? And I had a mirror put in front of me, right? And so part of it was, I told you about the punch in the gut for my son. Part of it was like some tough conversations with my partner. And that led me to therapy. And so, like, I had been knowing that, therapy is good, and I would tell everybody else to go to therapy, but I never took that step. And I was trying to demonstrate at this point to my son that it was okay to go get therapy. And so I went and got therapy first. And now I'm like, everybody need a therapist. And so through working with that therapist, I began to realize, where how I valued myself and what I thought that my value came from. And for me, again, I mentioned this before, I believed at that point that most that my value came from my brain. Like, I'm very smart. I ain't gonna be humble in that, y'all. Brag. Like, I'm very smart. And I put like, I thought that was the only value that I brought to people, into this world, into my job, was this intelligence that I have. And so that was what was driving me to go back and get these more degrees and to keep proving myself. And so once, in working through therapy and going back and digging through where some of that stuff came from, then that's where I kind of got to this point to change my way of thinking and realize that, okay, yes, this is good. Deann is smart. Yes, that is very valuable. But Deann also brings other things to this world. Deann can be funny when she wants to. She's a cool person to hang out with. She's a great mom. She'll be a good partner, and all these other things too. And so that working through therapy, still in it now, has helped me to kind of realize, the other places that my value comes from. And then tied with that second part of the question, learning what I love. I think I always knew I loved reading and going on walks. I had to, with therapy, and this self actualization, got to a place where I was comfortable in saying that, because to me, before then, it was like, that's boring. Who reads books? And, like, people always have like, and I still, like, when people are talking, you ask them what they love. Sometimes people have like these great or like outlandish things that looks like for them. For me, it's just, I love reading books. And so when I began to like look at myself different and value myself different, then I got okay with being, more authentically me, and saying, I just love to read books. That's what I do. That's my hobby. That's what you can find me doing in my spare time.
I love that. It's like realizing, like, this is what fills me. Whoever doesn't like
Yeah.
it, that's their business.
Yeah.
Awesome. What would you say to someone that's just starting out on your journey? They're struggling to find their self. They're trying to become the best version of themselves. They want to balance all the things and be all the things. What would you say to them?
Oh, so I guess a couple of things. One, get a therapist. Now that I've got one, like everybody needs one. I wish it was easy access and it was like 100% covered by, insurance, and everybody should have it. If it is within your means, I know it's privilege of me to say get a therapist, get you a therapist, because you can really work through some of the stuff and really understand why you're on this journey, what you're trying to get out of this journey, what is driving you. Because I think once you understand that, you're better able to see and maneuver where you're trying to go. If you can't get a therapist, still sit down and, there's self help books, there's things that you can do and figure out what is it that you want out of life, out of your career, out of this job. What's the reasoning and the passion behind it? What are the different routes that you could go to get there, and try to to map that out. Again, like growing up, I thought there was only one route, there was this one path, and you say straight on this path is to becoming this medical doctor. But no, that's not the truth. There's all these twists and turns and ups and downs and different ways and back doors you can go into. And so think about all the different ways that you can get to your endpoint, and then choose the one that works best for you.
Yeah, it sounds like you're telling them to get out of their house, get out of their
Yes.
head, and network.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. Put some action behind it. We were having in my house yesterday, dinner table. We were sitting there. We was talking with my son, who's in high school now, and so it's time to start thinking about these things. And one of the things that we were talking about was everybody has dreams, and it's great to have dreams, but you need to get that dream out of your head, put some action behind it, go out here and network, read some, like find out what it takes to make that dream come true and to do it, because so many times we'll just sit here with that dream and it'll be in your journal, it'll be in your notepad, you be done scribbled it down on a piece of paper, and it never leaves that place. So that's the other piece of advice. Get the dream, that idea out of your head, put some action behind it. Every day do one small little thing that you could do to make that dream come true or to accomplish that goal. And then you're gonna look up a little while down the road and you're gonna be like, dang, I finally got here.
I love that. I love that. And it starts young. So I love that you're
Yes.
already starting to put those things and instill those things, is what I really should have said, into your son,
Yeah.
just to make sure he's aware, like, you can do it, but it takes action.
No, and you were right. We trying to put those things in his brain. Drop off little our little 2 cents every day and hope that it sticks.
Yes, yes. Is there anything that you wanted to ask me before we start to close out, or anything you wanted me to share?
No, what you asked me, what my one piece of advice for someone that is early on in your career, what would be your one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's later on in their, or not later, but midway through their career?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's taking some time to be still. To your point of therapy, therapy is
Yes.
instrumental. Like, therapy for me had me looking in the mirror, to your point, and trying to
Mm-hmm.
understand my thought process around complacency and contentment. Like, for me, they were one and the same. So if you don't
Yeah.
understand it's okay to be content, then you can't even be mindful and enjoy the life you've already built. So, like,
Ooh.
that was important to me. And then from there, it's figuring out what's important to you, like what kind of boundaries
Mm-hmm.
you want to set, what you want to say no to. I say no all the time. There are things that I
Yes.
do not show up for, and I'm really flaky, and it's so sad. But you have to get to that point to
Mm-hmm.
where today I'm maxed out. Initially, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do XYZ, but now I can't. And then to your point of everything you shared earlier, there are so many things that we have as priorities. We have to figure out what's important to us and find the career, the job, the life, the husband, the
Yes.
whoever that balances with that, so that you can live every day as your authentic self and you don't feel like full of all of these stresses that are going to happen, but it's because you haven't set boundaries for yourself or figured out who you are.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it all starts with knowing who you are, and then because once you figure out that, you can start, stacking, figuring out everything else that's around you. Thank you. I will take heed to that piece of advice. Find
Yeah.
some time this weekend to be still.
Yeah, and so you're definitely modest in some of the things that you talked about in terms of what you're doing, because not only are you leading DEI initiatives at different organizations, but you're also a business owner. To your point, you're a mom. You had a podcast, and I also want to say thank you for having me on your podcast last year. And I think that the reason why I'm telling you thank you, I want you to realize why, is when my mom passed, I had been on two podcasts and one was yours. And she was
Hmm.
so proud and elated to share it with everybody and their mom in the US and in Jamaica and everywhere. And so the reason, really wholeheartedly, and why I wanted you to be on, because for her to pass and seeing me do the podcast, because I was on yours, I was like, that was like God intentional and beautiful. I was like, girl, you got to bring Dr. Deann on, because she allowed your mom to see you in full action before you even started yours. So I wanted to say thank you. And that's why it's important for us to show up and do our work.
Yes, it is. And you just gave me all the chills, and I'm holding back the tears right here. But, one thing I think one of the ultimate passions of mine, and why I did that podcast and the business owner, was to make sure that Black women's voices are heard within healthcare. Because a lot of times we are not, and we are out here and we have all this knowledge, all this experience, all this know how. And I think, now is our time. And so I am glad you have this podcast. I'm glad that I had you on mine. Keep doing what you're doing. Cause, I didn't know I had that impact on you, and now you're out here doing it, and you're having that same impact on others. So it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And where can the listeners find you online?
Yes, please. The best place to find me online is on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn and you're listening to this, reach out to me so I can tell you how to get on LinkedIn. If you are in healthcare, if you are a business owner, that you need to be on LinkedIn. And that's one of the things that I do help people do. So www.linkedin.com/in/Deann Butler, or just put in Deann Butler. If you Google Deann Butler, the LinkedIn profile is probably going to come up. That is the best place to find me. Come on over there and join in with me on the conversation about how we can advance health equity and make sure everyone gets high quality health care. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much, Deanna. I really appreciate you hopping on the podcast, sharing the gems, and letting the world experience you.
Thank you.